Now, I love headphones. They're a really useful tool, especially when editing dialogue, but I can't edit and mix in them all day long, and so I have to have monitors in my room. And as we've discussed before, headphones have some disadvantages as well that make them less than ideal for mixing if anyone in your audience is going to be listening on speakers. So that's one thing. So I mix in a combination. I do use headphones, especially when I'm editing dialogue, but there comes a point where I have to get out of those and go to the monitors and then maybe switch back and forth a little bit. And usually when I am using headphones, I'm almost always using open back just because they don't sound so congested and stuffy. The great thing about speakers, though, is that I know this is, if you're using good reference monitors, monitors that are neutral, that are honest instead of colored to make them sound good, then I can make good decisions about what I'm mixing so that it will sound its best on no matter what people listen back on, whether that's going to be earbuds, headphones, speakers, whatever. So I need to use a combination. My main monitors are Focal Solo 6Bs, which I think they've now updated. They're just called Solo 6 now. And I also use a 12-inch subwoofer from Focal as well. When I originally bought these 9 years ago, they cost me over $5,000 for the kit. That wasn't even including quality audio cables. So these are out of the reach of many people. Now, if you're a professional and you're doing mixing all day long, that's what you do, that's a reasonable investment to make. But if you are working in video and maybe audio is not your primary thing, it's not the main way you're making money, $5,000 is probably not achievable for most of us. Now, there, of course, are other options out there that are more affordable. And in fact, when I did my search for my monitors previously, I did actually listen to some of the Adam, at the time, I think it was the A7X, and it was pretty good. It was a contender, definitely, in the list of monitors I was looking at. But the A7Vs are the newer generation of that, and they're more reasonably priced than the Focals, so they're not cheap. They're $1,800 for a set of two. But this video is for pros, so and enthusiasts that have the cash to burn on something like this. But if this isn't you, and you aren't interested in learning why pros use gear like this, you're dismissed. I don't want to waste your time, so we'll see you next week. Okay, now that they're gone. Full disclosure, Adam sent me the A7Vs that I'm using here. They did not charge me for them. They gave them to me for free to make this video. They have not told me what to say. They have not reviewed this video prior to posting, and all the opinions shared here are my own. And this video is sponsored by Learn Light and Sound. We have courses teaching you how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Link down below. Okay, there are some hard facts we need to talk about first. And for those that are more experienced, you probably already know this. But if you're just buying your first set of monitors, or you're upgrading to a higher end set of monitors, and you're considering the A7Vs from Adam Audio, the reality is that monitors are only half the equation. The other half is the room in which you place them. So when you can get the perfect set of near-field monitor speakers and put them in a less than ideal room, and what you hear will not be neutral. It will be colored, and it's mainly being colored by the room that you're in and the acoustic properties of that room. So we all need to face that reality, including me. But there are some things you can do that can optimize the audio. So obviously you can choose where in the room you place the monitors. That can have a huge impact. Number two, whether or not you acoustically treat and how you acoustically treat the space. That's an investment, that's a commitment. And in my particular room, I do have about $2,000 worth of GIK acoustics panels that I worked with their acoustician to design for my particular room. And that worked out. It's working pretty well for me. And then once you've kind of done those two things, kind of the cherry on top is what's called room correction. And this is using a system like Sonarworks SoundID Reference. And what you do is you use a reference microphone and you measure the response of your monitors in that particular room around the listening position. And then that correction system applies some EQ and some phase correction for your particular room. So every time the monitors play back a sound, they're being corrected for your particular room. And that is how you can get to a pretty good spot. And that's where we're at here. Now, I can hear some of you saying, but wait, Curtis, I live in an apartment. I can't do that. And I understand that. That's not something that we can all do. You'll just have to do the best that you can. And you can control placement of the speakers within your room, and you can control room corrections, or you can do room correction. That's not ideal, but if that's all you got to work with, that's an option. Whether or not you're treating your room, the A7Vs are a good option from a few different perspectives. And let me kind of tell you what's unique about them. First of all, they use the X-Art ribbon tweeters. These are designed by Adam Audio. ART stands for Accelerated Ribbon Tweeter. And instead of the little dome tweeter like most speakers have, this has a little ribbon. And the advantage of this is it can generate high-frequency sound with less distortion than most traditional dome tweeters. So that's one thing that's pretty special about this. Second, there's some fairly extensive hardware EQ configurability. Right on the back of the speakers, you can actually change the EQ to adapt it to your particular room. Now, you might be asking yourself, Curtis, I don't even know where to start with this. What do I do with that? We'll get to that in just a minute. But if you do know what you need to do, that's all available right there on the back of the monitors. Just push a button and you can tune those monitors for your particular room. The other thing that's cool is that there are Ethernet ports on the back of each of the speakers, so you can connect them to your network and control these EQ settings, for example, from your computer. Pretty nice thing as well. But the biggest feature from my perspective, the thing that intrigued me most about them, and that when Adam Audio contacted me, that what made me excited to try them, is that the speakers have digital signal processing built into them. So I can use Sonarworks SoundID Reference, get the measurements for my room with those monitors, with the A7Vs, and instead of having to run the correction on the Sonarworks app, which I've had no end of trouble with on my Mac, where it just, after OS updates or after app updates, it would just stop working or work very inconsistently. Now what I can do is take that correction profile that I measured with SoundID Reference, and with the A Audio app, or A Audio Control app, I can actually load those correction profiles directly into the monitors themselves, and the monitors apply that correction. So I don't have to run the SoundID Reference app on my computer anymore, and that's a beautiful thing. And then finally, the A7Vs have a 2-year warranty that extends to 5 years when you register the monitors after you've bought them. So those are kind of the special things about this. Now, I got these out of the box, set them up, settled them in for a period. That is to say, I ran a bunch of music and video and dialogue and all sorts of stuff through them. So I've had mine for a few weeks now. I've probably ran them at least 60 hours, probably a little bit more than that. And obviously my room is acoustically treated, but to my ear, they sound neutral right out of the box. You just set them up, connected them to my Apollo audio interface, and they sound neutral. They sound revealing. They sound honest. So they don't sound exactly the same as my focal setup, and to be fair, the focals, I have monitors plus I have a subwoofer, but even so, they sound quite close. And what I did out of curiosity is I measured both of those setups without changing anything else in the room, just changing out the monitors. I measured, first of all, the focals with SoundID Reference, and it takes about 30 measurements, again, at various points around the listening position. And then I also did the same thing with the A7Vs, 30 plus measurements. I think it's like 32 or 36. I don't remember, measurements around the listening position. And here's how they compare. Not surprisingly, the focal with a 12-inch subwoofer could produce bass down to lower frequencies than the A7Vs could. But the A7Vs did really, really well and would probably rival the focal setup with a subwoofer at a much lower price point. The important thing is that with the SoundID Reference correction, they're really neutral in my room. They look something like this. Now, of course, this will look different in your room, but this is something I can definitely work with that is honest, so I know where my problems lie when I'm doing my mixing and my dialogue editing, and I can clean that up, and I can put the mix in a great spot so that no matter where people are listening back, whether it's on earbuds, headphones, speakers, TV speakers, whatever it is, they're going to get the best sound. They're going to get something that's coming from a good starting spot. Now, of course, their speakers or monitors or headphones are going to color that to some extent, but at least it's starting from the right spot. It's starting where every good mix should start. So I would say overall, the A7Vs for my work, again, mostly dialogue with music beds, the A7Vs do the job really, really nicely. They're neutral, they're truthful, they have plenty of headroom, which is to say, they're not even close to straining to deliver the volumes that I need in my mix room. So as soon as if you have to turn up your monitors to the point where they're straining, where they're kind of at the edges of where they're able to capably deliver sound, that's gonna mess with things. But these have plenty of headroom. I can push them as much as I need to. I'm not even close to maxing them out, and I'm in a good spot. I can find all the problems with my sound, I can fix it, and I can do that with confidence. So next I'd like to try it with a subwoofer and see how that goes. Hope that was helpful. Get out there and make some great sound, and we'll talk to you again next week.